on LBC.
I really wasn't, take my word for it, quick to rush to judgment about these deaths on the Israel-Gaza border this week. I wanted to do due diligence, and I suppose a small part of me hoped, well, a big part of me hoped that this wasn't true, that there didn't seem, that the images of what seemed to be grotesque disproportionality on the part of the Israeli state were not true. But it's difficult. It's difficult to come to a different conclusion to that. Now, it's true that a senior Hamas official, Salah Badawel, said in a TV interview this week on Tuesday that 50 out of those killed on Monday were from Hamas and 12 were ordinary people. But he didn't elaborate, apparently, or if he did, I haven't seen the evidence of it. And Hamas spokesman Fawzi Baroum later declined to confirm whether all 50 were members of the group. You would have thought, wouldn't you, that it would, in a sense, be in Hamas's warped interests to claim that most of the people killed were citizens, because that would encourage international opinion in their direction. 0345 6060 973. Before we go to Mary and then to Abbas, the tragedy of this, one of the tragedies of this situation, is that you can understand why Israel has... I can understand why the temptation for Israel to have blockaded Gaza, because they don't want the likes of Iran to be sending weapons to the Gazans, to Hamas, so that Hamas can then perpetrate wicked deeds on Israel. You can get that. But the problem is that the blockade then further impoverishes the people who live in that tiny strip of land. And I've been to Israel, it's a tiny, tiny country. The Gaza Strip is just a sliver. And if you're impoverished and feel desperate in that area, and you're going to fill up with rage to the point that you are, some of them, prepared to run into the line of fire quite literally. So it is the most vicious in a way of vicious circles. 0345 6060 973. In Finchley, Mary is waiting for us. Mary, good morning.
Good morning. Who's a gangster state? Are the children of Israel gangsters?
What do you mean by that?
What do you mean by that? What's a gangster state? Who are gangsters? The children of Israel huddled together in underground shelters most of their lives near the Gaza, near Lebanon, because of all the rockets coming over. Are they gangsters?
No, I was talking about the Israeli state. I'm not talking about the individual citizens of Israel.
What is a gangster state? I've never heard of such an expression. Have you made it up?
If I've coined the phrase, then I've coined the phrase. What I mean by it, Mary,
yes,
if you'll allow me to explain. Okay, you don't want to hear my answer, do you? So you just carry on, I'll shut up, and you speak.
Well, have you been to see the children huddled into underground shelters all along wherever there's a border with Gaza or Lebanon, where they have to live most of their lives because these frightened little children, thousands and thousands of them, are so scared that their neighbours want to kill them? What have they done?
Nothing.
So the emotional scars and the helplessness of Jewish children isn't anything to you. You're only concerned about whatever happens to Palestinians. Because if you want to be a journalist, you've got to be balanced. And you've got some awful hang-up about the Jewish part of you that you obviously hate.
I think that's a very odd thing to say. I'm not even going to respond to that. But the whole point I think that a lot of people would say of my shows is that they're nothing if not fair. I give my opinions, I listen to other people, and on this bitter question of Israel and Palestine, I'm quite clear to apportion blame on both sides of that fence, metaphorically but also literally. Hamas are an evil organisation. The Israeli state, I think, has done gangster deeds, including taking land from the Palestinians, which makes a two-state solution almost impossible, Mary. Of course, I have sympathy for those children. I have friends who have had to take their newborn babies into shelters. This was in 2014 when Hamas were firing rockets into Israel on a daily basis. And I have huge sympathy for them, of course. But that doesn't mean that I am not repulsed by seeing live fire and Palestinians being shot down on the other side of that fence. It's possible to care about both, Mary. I don't see why this has to be binary.
You don't care about either. You care about yourself and making headlines. I think it's disgusting the way you have used gangster state. I think it's absolutely disgusting that you're calling a democracy in the Middle East, the only one, a gangster state. That expression is absolutely hideous and onerous, and I hope you take it back, because if you don't like certain things that a government of the day is doing, spell it out. A gangster state.
That's what I mean by the government. Of course, I don't mean the children in the shelters. Mary, if you're happy to, please do stay there, because I want to bring in Abbas in Redbridge. Abbas, what would you say to Mary? Good morning.
Hello, Mary. I think Mary is a bit ill-informed, to be honest. Mary talks about rockets being fired at Israel and the children rushing into shelters. And, of course, people would be scared if rockets were firing, but the Israeli figures themselves in Protective Edge and the other conflict that they had, cast lead. In the last conflict, they said over 5,000 rockets were fired over by Hamas. And they reckon that 700 and something were taken out by the protective, dome. So therefore, over 4,000 rockets apparently made it into Israel. Do you know how many houses were destroyed in Israel, Mary? Do you have an idea?
Mary, are you still there?
Yeah, let him tell me.
Just one. And do you know how many homes in Palestine were destroyed? 18,000.
Well, how many people were in shelters in Gaza?
18,000 homes destroyed in Palestine.
No, I'm saying how many children, how many people are in shelters in Gaza?
They don't have shelters, Mary. They just get
smithereens. Why not? Why not? Why is their money being spent on killing Israelis and not on protecting themselves? What is it? What is it that makes you think that...
Mary, you can make these type of claims if you wish to, but the reality is you have a people that are utterly being humiliated and systematically destroyed over the last 50 or 60 years.
But Abbas, Mary's got a point, hasn't she, when she's talking about the leadership in Gaza? The leadership in Gaza is warped. You can't pretend that Hamas it does any favours to the people that they represent.
I have no interest in the leadership in Palestine. I think they are corrupt, absolutely. But who's corrupted them? Who are giving them backhanders not to take the correct action in relation to what in the interests of the Palestinians? Who would gain from corrupting those people? Exactly, it's the Israelis.
No, come on, you can't possibly, Abbas. You can't possibly blame the Israelis for the corrupt behaviour of the Hamas leadership. Come on.
I'm not excusing it. But it's in the interest of Israel to have corrupt leadership within Palestine, because if you have leadership in Palestine that would look after the interest of the Palestinians, then we wouldn't have many of the problems that we're having at the moment. They are corrupt, I totally agree.
Well, let's blame them for their own corruption, Abbas. Just stay there for a second. Mary, how do you respond?
Incredulous. On the West Bank, Abbas and the, is it Fatah?
Go on, yeah.
They are trying.
Palestinian Authority, led by Fatah, yeah.
They are trying to negotiate. They want to have they are completely different. But the Gazans have got the most awful people who are killing themselves if they, what they call, do anything for Israel, they're killed. If they're homosexuals, these are disgusting, ordinary people putting their own children into the firing line, telling them to go and do this. And the awful thing is that whole thing was about the right of return. These people are never going to return. They're never going to go back to Israel where they were, because life has moved on. Most countries have got people that have left here or gone there. And if they think that the killing everybody and cutting everybody up and doing all these things is going to make Israel say, OK, then you can come back to where you were. They're ludicrous, and people who believe it are mad.
Mary, thank you. Abbas, you have the final word. Before you do so, Mary was wrong to characterise these children on the border as spending their whole lives underground in shelters. The IDF, according to the Jerusalem Post in January this year, says that 35 rockets were fired at Israel over the past year, up from 15 in 2016 and 21 in 2015. But there may, of course, be scares. Abbas, you have the final word. We're going to continue with this after the news because so many want to have their say. But you finish this hour for us, Abbas, please.
Well, if people really want to be informed about what is happening, I would advise you to listen to Professor Norman Finkelstein, who himself, his parents were both Holocaust survivors. And listen to what he has to say. He's written several...
Well, let's not listen to Finkelstein. Let's listen to you, Abbas. Sum it up for your position.
No, but it's important, because if I quote somebody and I quote what they have to say about it, the fact that he's a political scientist, the fact that his parents were Holocaust survivors, I think...
So quote him then, what's the point?
Well, lots of points, and in particular, if you look at the Israelis themselves and, human rights organizations, they reckon that Palestine will be unlivable by 2020. You can't do that to an entire people and expect them not to be throwing stones. If 97% or 95% of the water is undrinkable, you cannot expect them to do anything other than throwing stones. And these rockets that people keep talking about, according to Finkelstein and many other experts, they're glorified fireworks.
Abbas, thank you. Abbas in Redbridge. Israel does, of course, have...